Hey everyone, welcome to Judging for the Win. I'm Dave, and this is my daily ruling. Today's question was suggested by a viewer. Amy cascades into a Lindblum with Bloodbraid Elf. Can she play it as a land? Can she cast it as an adventure? Alright, so this is a relatively straightforward one to start with. Anytime an adventure card is in any zone other than the stack, the game considers it to only have the characteristics of its main half. This means that when Lindblum is in your library or in exile, the game considers it to be a land card. Therefore, you cannot cascade into Lindblum for the same reason you cannot cascade into a mountain. You would just keep right on exiling until you actually hit a non-land card. Okay, well, what about if you hit some other card, often Etali Primal Conqueror, but you exile the Lindblum along the way? Well, unfortunately, this does not work for the same reason. Etali says you can cast spells from among non-land cards exiled this way. Since Lindblum is considered to be a land card while in exile, it is not part of the set of cards that you can cast spells from. Well, next up, what if you hit a Lindblum with a Ragavan? Okay, so this is an interesting question because if you played Ragavan before, you might already know that if you exile a card with Ragavan, you can cast it in any way that you would normally be able to cast it. For example, if it has Evoke or Kicker or Prototype, you could take advantage of those, or you could just cast it with its normal mana cost without any of the fancy extras. On the other hand, if you hit a land with Ragavan, you probably already know that you cannot play it. Now, this discrepancy makes it not really that obvious what the answer should be. In order to answer this question, we'll need to understand exactly why you can't play lands with Ragavan. And that's because Ragavan lets you cast the exiled card. This game term specifically refers to the process of casting spells. It does not apply to the special action of playing a land. Because there is no rule or game effect allowing you to play Lindblum as a land, it is not legal for you to do so in this case. In contrast, it is possible for you to cast Mage Siege because that's casting a spell, and Ragavan's effect does allow you to do that. Well, finally, let's see about this Reckless Impulse. Unlike Ragavan, notice that this says you can play the exiled cards. This game term is defined such that it refers to either playing a land or casting a spell. Accordingly, you could play either Lindblum as a land or cast the Mage Siege as a spell. I'd like to give some general advice for determining which effects could or could not work with these sorts of cards, but unfortunately, as you can see, there are a lot of variables that can sway the answer one way or the other. Hopefully the information in this video is helpful in identifying how you can play these cards in situations that come up in your games. For further information about how various mechanics do or do not interact with adventurer cards, check out my dedicated video titled, How Does Adventure Work? And for more information on what you could or could not be playing off of various types of exile effects, check out my video on Ragavan plus Evoke. Finally, I'll close off with something I expect some people are probably wondering about in light of these last couple of examples. If you cast a Mage Siege off a Ragavan or a Reckless Impulse, or some other unusual method besides just casting it from your hand, you still do get to exile it as it resolves by virtue of the adventure mechanic, and you can play the main half of that card as long as it remains exiled. If a player somehow manages to play an adventure card that a different player owns, the player who controlled the adventure spell as it resolved is the one who can play the other half on a future turn. And that's all I have for you today. How did you do? Join me again next time for another daily ruling. Until then, I hope you have a great day.